again to the Rare Book Cafe, the coffee break edition. Hello, everybody. Welcome to 2024 and welcome to our first show of the year with my co-host, Lee Linn from Ridge Books, Calhoun, Georgia. Lee.
Hello.
Hey.
It's good to be back.
And Richard Mori, who's snowbirding in Florida this time of the year.
Hey, Ed.
How's everybody doing?
Doing good.
Good. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll tell you what, I checked my personal warranty over the holidays, and I had no idea it was going to extend past 2024.
Yeah, I wasn't too sure about that myself.
Everybody have a good holiday season? You got any New Year's resolutions? Are you resolution type of people?
Well, my New Year's resolution this year has to be learning to climb stairs again. For our viewers who may not know, I had a serious fall at a book fair in Boston back in October and have been recovering ever since. And I start outpatient rehab next week. And one of the goals will be to climb stairs because my book room is upstairs and I can't pack for Florida until I can climb those stairs, even if it means sitting down the steps and bumping up, one step at a time. So that is my New Year's resolution, is stair climbing.
Good luck. Well, I'm sure you're going to be successful at it.
I hope so.
How about you, Richard?
Well, I'm not a resolution kind of guy, other than I just want to keep being happy. And right now, Florida seems like a really good place to be happy.
Well, I'm currently in Connecticut, and we had 3 inches of snow 2 days ago, and I was less than happy. So I'm jealous.
The reason I'm not in New Hampshire.
Lee, you mentioned Florida. What's going on in Florida? Lee, you mentioned Florida. You said you were going to Florida. What's going on in Florida?
Oh, well, gee, I thought everybody knew that. The Florida Antiquarian Book Fair, March the 1st through the 3rd at the Coliseum in St. Petersburg, where we usually are that sometime in March or April. I've been going for about 20 years or so. And Richard, how long have you been participating?
At least 20 and maybe a couple more.
Yeah. I mean, where else would we be?
I can't think of another place.
I know. Last year, Mike Slicker thanked me for coming, and I said, "Well, where else would I be?" And had some doubts this year, of course, after my fall, of whether I would make it to Florida. But I had been released by medical personnel. They don't see any problem with me going. My son, who is here with me in Calhoun now, and has been since we came home from Boston the end of November, is coming with me. And
you're very courageous, Lee. Good for you. Get back in the saddle.
So and I'm back online. I'm back selling books, and so things are returning to semi-normal at least.
Great. So what are you bringing to the fair, Lee?
Well, the first thing is not so much what I'm bringing to the fair, but what I'm wearing to the fair. I found these on eBay. They are Cat in the Hat.
Cat in the Hat shoes.
Yes. Produced by Skechers. They're very comfortable. Richard made some crack about them being big, but they're unfortunately my size. They just look big on the screen.
All that means is you have good understanding.
Right. A firm foundation. So at any rate, I'm going to be wearing my Dr. Seuss shoes, at least some of the time.
You be styling.
I know. I'm going to have a whole new wardrobe to coordinate, I suppose.
I think Richard was just jealous because he didn't find them first.
He didn't find them first.
He is.
Yeah. And as far as what I'm bringing,
of course, if I know Richard, he would have sold them rather than worn them.
Well, when I was in Boston at the book fair, which was a lovely experience until I fell, and that the show was over then, and I had extremely good help, mostly thanks to this gentleman here, Richard, who demanded the best possible care for me, and I got it at Mass General, and then in a rehab facility also owned by Mass General. But I was there for, I fell on the 28th of October and came home on the 28th of November. So I was there an entire month, and I still haven't toured Boston. But anyway, but the fair itself was so much fun. Getting to go to the Boston International Book Fair the night before was a real eye-opening experience, and I got to see people I hadn't seen in a while and meet some people that I've dealt with online but never had met. It was just that was great. That was great. But I did buy some books, and so I brought 3 because they were all by the same author. And these are all either written or illustrated by Barry Moser. And this is a book of his own writing. This is not a book of pictures, but it is a book of his own essays and writings, and called In the Face of Presumptions. And it is signed. I don't know how well you can see the signature, but it is signed. And so I'm bringing that, which for people who aren't familiar with him, this would be a really good kind of an introduction, to his work, because I think what most of us are familiar with are his illustrations. And then the illustrated ones, these are the fun ones. The Wizard of Oz. Let's see if I can. Again, illustrated. I mean, signed. And of course the illustrations, well, it's kind of hard to see this. Illustrations, let me find a.
Oz is always so collectible. Richard, can you even begin to guess how many different editions there's been of the Oz books?
And these are, black ink drawings, which we tend to associate with a lot of his work. So and there's the Scarecrow. So it's just a beautiful, large format book, and in brand new condition. All 3 of these are, and the other one, okay, this one is the real prize. And after The Wizard of Oz, what is your favorite children's illustrated book? For most people,
Alice in Wonderland.
Wonderland, of course. And that's what this one is, with slip.
I was going to say Narnia.
Well, that's another. This comes in a slipcase. It's great big. It's 2 volumes. And let's see, let me find some. And the it's not. Okay, for example, I not recently, but a year or so ago, had a limited edition Alice by Sabuda that was, gorgeous and very much in your face. Every page had something that was, of course, a pop-up book, had something that jumped out at you, and every page also then had little ancillary pieces that folded out or pulled out or something. And this is a much more subtle, I think, rendering of it, with, again, the black and white drawings, but just a beautiful book. And again, in new condition. So these will all be coming to Florida with me, along with my shoes. I have purchased, many of you know that I do a lot with African American, particularly Harlem Renaissance writers, and I have recently purchased a couple of new Langston Hughes items that I'm not even going to tell you about, I think, yet, maybe closer to the show. I don't have them yet, so I can't show them yet, but a couple of pieces that I'm both are signed and that I'm really excited about. So my profits from the Boston show have, sort of
Plowed back into the business.
All back into the books. That's right.
This
That's
is
where the
good.
money goes. That's where the money goes.
That's why I'm wearing the same shirt as the last show.
So yeah, well, we are all in the same clothes as the last show, I think. So you know, I've been looking at different things to bring. And you know, we'll just see. I have some books about comic books and comic book art that I have not taken to shows that I think might find their way to this one.
Always good to experiment.
Maybe.
You got to know your market.
Yeah.
So Richard, tell me about the Florida market. You're down there 3 months a year. You've hauled your trailer of books down there with you. What are you expecting?
You know my routine, don't you, Ed? Well, I have hauled my stuff down, but I have to tell you, the trip down was very exciting, actually. When I left New Hampshire, I stopped in Philadelphia and did the second year of a new show. Had a wonderful time, the great show. Looking forward to next year being there in Philadelphia. And it's some of your listeners and watchers here, I think, are probably in the market area. You should go to that show. And on the way down, I made a couple stops, and I've got some things I'm not going to show today, but that I picked up. I picked up 5 Jimmy Carter signed books in one location. I picked up a wonderful C.S. Lewis piece I've never seen, very small print runs from 1943 in a pamphlet form. And then down here, this past weekend, I did a little small paper show, and I picked up a signed copy of The Exorcist, which is really great, that I'm going to have at the show. And what was the other?
This is the 50th anniversary, the 50th anniversary of the publication.
Yes. Well, no, that was 1971, I think it was.
Maybe the 50th anniversary of the movie.
Yes, that could be. Yes, that would. Yeah. The other thing I picked up a 1933 William Faulkner piece in the dust jacket, which I never see. So those are some of the exciting things. But to follow the theme of let's see,
Power of the Squander Bug.
Power of the Squander Bug. Do you recognize this, Ed?
I'm afraid I don't. Buy war bonds.
Okay. Do you know?
Seuss?
Is it a poster?
It is a small poster done during World War II by Dr. Seuss to promote the war bonds, that were being sold. So this will be at the show. I have another piece I didn't bring, which is very, very large.
Do you know if the Squander Bug ever made it into one of his books?
No, but it does. It's a little bit reminiscent of the Grinch, I think. Yeah, so
the illustration looks a little familiar.
Yeah,
the feet particularly, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a foundation to the Grinch itself. So, but I can't say that for certainty. I don't know the lineage of that, but it certainly feels that for me. So and I have an other unusual flat piece of his that I'll be having at the show, which is very rare. But everybody talks about the Seuss books, but here's the book everybody who's really serious about Seuss has to have. This is the bibliography written by Helen and Mark Younger and Dan Hirsch. I knew Helen and Mark when they actually were doing this book. And this is the bibliography of Dr. Seuss. Everything published, not the flat stuff, but all the books and paper that he produced. And the question really is, people say, well, I can get all this information online. Well, you can try to get this information online, but I encourage you to be careful, because a lot of this information isn't correct. And matter of fact, very few people even know this, that after the book was produced, there was an addendum
Errata.
created of errata. And even this book has mistakes. And I recently discovered I had something come in. I was searching online, as we all do, to get some primary information. And something didn't feel right because my copy looked like and should be a first edition. And yet online, they were giving me alternate information. And I said, boy, that's not right. So I went to my book, I pulled it out. Well, the book was giving me the same information as online, but when I pulled the errata slip out, I discovered they had made a mistake in the book, and the errata slip tells you the real facts. So these kinds of books pay for themselves. I actually am going to have copies of this for sale at the show. But I just wanted to give us a little promotion about if you want to know Dr. Seuss, you have to know his books. And I'll give you a quick example, Ed, and you may know this book here pretty well.
I've read it more than once.
Okay.
Usually out loud and bedside.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume that's where you learned your ABCs, but I won't say much more about that. But
A, you're adorable. B, you're so beautiful. C, you're the epitome of charm. That's how I learned my ABCs.
Okay, well, it's a
I
good
didn't
one.
know you could sing.
Yeah, well, don't give up your day job, Ed. But the nice thing about this book, it gives you, like, this is a picture of the dust jacket and the back of the dust jacket, so that you can visually see you can compare whatever you're holding in your hand to what a first edition looks like. And of course, it gives you all the detailed information about the printing and the content and what's supposed to be, which identifies a first edition. These books are invaluable for that reason. One of the things I tell my customers, I said, listen, you can buy Dr. Seuss books a lot of places. But if you're going to buy places that you haven't been to before, the one question you should always ask them if you're buying Dr. Seuss books is, do you own a copy of the Seuss bibliography? If they give you a blank stare, I suggest you be cautious, because they may not know what a first edition is, because the Seuss books generally do not say first edition in them.
Well, I do not have a copy of that in my bibliography. I do have a copy of Bienvenue's the Oz books, which are very important. But I don't think many people understand that booksellers' bibliography libraries are so extensive.
Yeah.
I mean, they can range from dozens to hundreds of books, depending upon
thousands.
Your special thousands. Yeah, bibliographies are absolutely essential to being a legitimate, authoritative bookseller.
Yeah.
And pricing your material correctly.
At eight bookshelves of reference books.
Yeah.
Which is really a fairly small collection.
But still, 25 per shelf, that's over 200 books.
But some of them are, for example, a number of years ago, we bought a book of sheet music that wound up having a second printing of Star Spangled Banner in it, which Libranos then sold for us to a hefty profit. And I have a whole reference book on the Star Spangled Banner sitting up here that we purchased after we bought that. And it hasn't been used since, but was certainly invaluable at the time that we needed it.
Well, there's so many people selling books on Amazon and eBay, and just buyer beware. Make sure that you understand the caliber of the book that you're purchasing.
Yeah.
I've never bought a reference book that hasn't paid for itself.
Oh yeah.
At some point, it may not be the next day, often though it is. Because I often buy reference books when I need them.
You need them that next day.
Yeah. But the amount of money my reference books make for me is incalculable. And I mean, one of the things people say to me all the time, well, how do I know this? And one of my pat answers is, well, You spend 30 years learning about books. You invest in a reference library of about $10,000 because that's what I've invested. And then you can start to think about calling yourself a bookseller.
All
Well,
right,
and
I'm
it's
spending my
fun.
afternoon with my two favorite booksellers. I wish you both the best of luck down there in St. Petersburg. Where's the location, Lee?
At the Coliseum,
The
which
St.
is a
Petersburg
1920s
Coliseum, March 1
dance
through
hall.
3.
It's a wonderful, wonderful venue with vaulted ceilings and wood floors, and we have live music on Friday night. And it's just a really, really nice venue. And Sarah Smith, who's the fair manager, does an outstanding job.
Yeah, a very festive atmosphere.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah,
very much so.
And a good time of year to be down there.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, that wraps it up for our first show of the year. We'd love to hear from you, whether you're listening to us. You're not advertising that book for sale, are you, Richard?
Well, shoot, if you can do that, Richard.
All right, hold them up, folks, while I take us out. Hey, welcome to our first show of the year. Whether you're following us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, or wherever good podcasts are given away from free, we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a note. Who's your favorite guest? What kind of books do you want to talk about? Where would you like to see this show go? Drop us a line. Thanks again, everybody. The Rare Book Cafe, the Book Lovers Rendezvous. Ciao.
Peace.
Out.